event that happened at the palace where they actually executed the Kumulipo, 2,000 somewhat lines. And that was just an incredible experience. And I want to also acknowledge those in the room that participated as well. I do know that our own Summer Silva was a part of that gathering as well. Personally, I fell asleep at the 1,500 line mark, but it was an incredible thing to experience. So congratulations there. So let me call this meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. The time is 9:10, 9:09 rather. And I call this meeting of the Committee on Beneficiary Advocacy and Empowerment to order. I want to welcome everyone to today's meeting and acknowledge my staff, Trustee Aide Leanne Stender Durant and Trustee Secretary Kyla He. I'd also like to ask you to turn to somebody, just to turn to somebody next to you and say aloha to them, just in the whole room. Just everybody say aloha to each other. Okay, aloha. Okay, very good. I feel better already. Leanne is serving as the committee meeting secretary. Leanne, please take the roll call.
Trustee Ahuna.
Eo.
Trustee Akaka.
Yo.
Trustee Akina.
Aloha mai kako.
Trustee Alapa.
Present.
Trustee Kahele.
Yeah.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza.
Eo.
Trustee Waihe'e. Chair Galutaria.
Eo.
We have 8 present. That constitutes a quorum.
Mahalo for that. Joining us at the table, trustees, is our kapuhana, Stacy Ferreira. I'd like to ask her to acknowledge those in the room that we should, please.
Mahalo, Chair. Good morning, trustees. Joining us today in person and online, we have our Chief Operating Officer, Keishan Kekina, General Counsel Everett Ota, Senior Director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs, Hailama Farden, Director of Advocacy, Lena Alale, Director of Education, Culture-Based Learning, Ku'ule Anuhea Awochan, Director of Community Engagement, Lisa Vaughn Sekona, Director of Communications, Bill Brennan, IT Systems Engineer and Administrator, Daniel Santos, and Kyle Saucier. And if I may, Chair, we have 2 new ohana to introduce to the board. May I call them up one at a time?
Please do.
Mahalo. It's my pleasure to call to the table our new legal counsel, Emmett Ford.
Hey, Emmett. Aloha. Please come forward.
Aloha, everyone. Aloha, everyone. I'm Emmett Ford. I was previously with the Department of Education, and this is my second time around at OHA. I was procurement manager back in, I think it was 2015. And I graduated from Richardson Law School, so, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back. And the next person I'd like to call to the table is our new Hawaiian Cultural Affairs Assistant, Ileana Rules.
Aloha.
Yep. Oh, red line.
Aloha mai kako o Ileana Haunani Relis Keia no Wai'anai Maia'o. It's a pleasure to be here at OHA. I formerly worked with all of many people from Kamehameha schools, but thank you so much for having me this morning and on the team.
Mahalo. Thank you. Thank you. Kapuhana. Oh.
So that completes our introductions of new staff. Mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo. Now, this meeting is being conducted in compliance with the HRS Chapter 92, Sunshine Law, and the OHA bylaws. It is viewable via live stream at www.oha.org/livestream and available for in-person attendance at the Mauli Ola Boardroom here in Honolulu. Pursuant to Article 12 of our bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order for small boards, Section 4921, we will be observing the following procedures. Trustees may speak and make motions. They will need recognition. Motions do not require a second. The chair may participate fully in debate and vote on all matters. Informal discussion is permitted while no motion is pending. And please observe order and decorum per Article 17 of the bylaws. Now, the public will be called on each of these next items and will be limited to 5 minutes per person. We have 4 sets of minutes, trustees, to approve today. April 30th, 2025, May 14th, 2025, May 28th, 2025, and July 23.
Don't move.
Thank you. Leanne, do we have public testimony on any of these items?
No
April
testimony
30th.
at this time.
None? Okay, very good. So, and thank you, trustee Ahuna. We'll do it each one by one, okay? May I have a motion on item A, April 30th, 2025? So move. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
trustee Akaka.
Aye.
Trustee Akina.
Aye.
Trustee Alapa.
Yes.
Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza.
Aye.
Trustee Waihe'e. And Chair Galutaria.
Aye.
We have 8 yes votes. It passes.
Mahalo. Trustees, may I have a motion on item B, May 14th, 2025?
So move.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Ahuna.
Aye.
Trustee Akaka.
Aye with amendments provided. Mahalo.
Trustee Akina. Trustee Alapa.
Aye.
Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza.
Aye.
Trustee Waihe'i not present. And Chair Galutaria.
Aye.
8 votes. Motion passes.
Mahalo, board. May I have a motion on item C, May 28th, 2025?
So move.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Ahuna.
Aye.
Trustee Akaka.
Aye with amendments provided. Mahalo.
Trustee Kina.
Aye.
Trustee Alapa.
Aye.
Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza.
Aye.
Trustee Waihe'i not present.
Yes.
Oh, you're here. Thank you. Chair Galutaria.
Aye.
We have a unanimous vote.
Mahalo, trustees. May I have a motion on item D, July 23rd, 2025?
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Ahuna, aye. Trustee Akaka. Trustee Akina. Trustee Alapa.
Aye.
Trustee Kahele.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza.
Aye.
Trustee Waihe'i.
Yes.
Chair Galutaria.
Aye.
Unanimous vote of 9.
Mahalo, trustees. Trustee Ahuna, you are ahead of your time. Thank you. Okay, we will now proceed to new business. For each item, we will receive public testimony followed by trustee discussion. We will now take up the first item on the agenda. Under new business, our first item is item A, an informational briefing on Project 2025 Counterstrategy Task Force to protect Native Hawaiian education. Chief Kapuana.
Mahalo, Chair. At this time, I'd like to invite Anu Awo-chan, our Director of Education and Culture-Based Learning, to provide the update.
Kalamai. Kalamai. Do we have any public testimony for this?
No public testimony at this time.
Okay, mahalo. Sorry about that. Please proceed.
Aloha mai kako. Mahalo for the time to be able to talk a little bit about one of the initiatives that we've been working on with our education team in collaboration with other education partners. So the Office of Hawaiian Affairs via SNI's education team helped to lead a task force convening to understand the impacts that federal funding changes on education systems were having on Native Hawaiian education and education in general. And so representatives from early childhood education, higher ed, community ed, and K-12 came together in a series of 3 sessions over the course of 1 month to talk about how shifts in federal funding were impacting their organizations individually, and then start to cross collaborate to see what was happening in the education ecosystem at large. So we generated a report after those 3 convenings that you guys all have. And in the report, there is just a very high level executive summary of what the task force found. Section 2 gives a little bit of the context of what was happening in national policy and how that was trickling down to us here in Hawaii. Section 3 talks a little bit about that ecosystem that was discussed at the task force convenings. Section 4 talks about some of what the task force said is possible around cross-sector collaboration. So really getting outside of who we talk to. If we're in early childhood ed and we only talk to early childhood ed, it was starting to make connections outside of that, or higher education, being able to understand how the choices they make in higher ed impact early childhood or K-12, things like that. The next section talks about strategic collaborations that the task force identified going forward. And then the very last section is the call to action, or the steps that the task force felt could be completed in the next 3 to 6 months. And so part of the reason why they did a short timeline like that is because shifts are happening so rapidly that it's really hard to plan long term. For our nonprofit organizations or for our schools, they're getting changes from month to month and week to week. And so it's very, very difficult for them to forecast out a year's time or even 6 months. And so what the task force determined was that we needed to make an action plan that was going to be short and fast and responsive to what might happen in the upcoming months. And to that point, since the report came out, there were some pretty big federal changes that came down that impacted many of our Hawaiian education institutions and community nonprofits. So, that was why the task force identified a need for really short and powerful actions in like the next 3 to 6 months. So there were some changes to federal funding that recently came down that impacted minority serving institutions. So funding for those kinds of programs were cut. And then there were revisions or reviews of programs that are currently in existence that then funding was pulled back because of things that they had said in their initial application. So yeah, much of what the task force did was ask institutions to go through their own budgets and determine how much of your program is funded federally and what would be the best and worst case scenarios if that funding changed. And so each organization that came to the convening had to come already being reflective about what their fiscal landscape would be if perchance they got no federal funds. And so organizations that came already had a shared language to talk about collaboration because they had already done some pre-work on this is what it's going to look like if federal money is shifted in this way. Here's how much of my organization is going to be impacted. Here's what programs are going to maybe not exist anymore. And here's how we might problem solve that. So everybody came with that before they even came together. And then that allowed people to just talk about, okay, well then what can we do about it? What do we want to do? How can we work together? Yeah. So the report does have suggested next steps. One of the very first next steps was that everyone was asked to take the report and share it somewhere else. So go to your, if you're K-12, go talk to your families about what the impacts are going to be. I think one example of something that came up when we went cross-sector collab is that K-12, not all K-12 leaders understood that there were changes that were happening like in the Department of Health that were going to impact them as a K-12 school. And they were surprised to learn that, oh, that actually is another funding impact that we didn't identify. We need to tell our families. And so that was important for us to be able to just talk across sectors. But we also called in leaders in the national landscape to give us updated information about what was happening. So we had Representative Jill Tokuda come. She spoke to the task force. UH President Wendy Hensel came and did some updates and some impact. And then we had partners from an organization called the Learning Policy Institute, and they kind of have a good pulse on what's happening in real time at the federal level. So they were coming and giving updates as well. And all the organizations really appreciated that. So I guess in terms of potential next steps for OHA, I made a list. If there are leaders or other entities that you as trustees have and want to share more about what the task force found, that could be one good next step. One action item that the task force found was that there's a critical need for retaining good data around our Native Hawaiian education programs and policies, because some of that is not funded anymore and or is not going to be conducted anymore. I know that OHA has a amazing data book that people always look to, and just making sure that we're maintaining that and reinvigorating that could be helpful. And then working with our Hawaiian focused charter schools, the Charter Commission, Hawaii DOE, to shore up different policy opportunities in terms of assessment or accountability. I think not listed on my paperwork, but just, I don't know if it's obvious, but we might want to consider doing some kind of bridge funding for programs that are going to lose funds, or in collaboration with other trusts or NHOs or private funders, just beginning conversations about how we might think about the fiscal impacts of our Native Hawaiian education organizations, community nonprofits, and seeing how we might just do stopgaps temporarily until funding stabilizes or until people know more about what the long-term impacts of funding are going to be. Sorry, I think I went over time. Oh, yeah, vale.
Any questions? Trustee Ahuna?
Just a quick question. So does federal funding, are the impacts through like a per pupil allocation to it? Does it come down per child at each school?
No,
Is that
not
what
necessarily.
Is that just big?
Sometimes it's grants.
I see.
Yeah, so it's all different. They come in from different streams.
Yeah. No, because I was wondering, because when you're talking about impacts, how they impact our like Native Hawaiian charter schools, one of them is we have big curriculum vendors like K-12. They have lots of no facilities or anything like that, but at the end of the year, when money gets dropped because of the number of students they have compared to our students, they receive much more than the average Native Hawaiian charter school. Is that correct? Or
I'm not sure of the details of how it flows into K-12, but I think some of it might. So if it's like a title grant that goes to serve students with disabilities, that might be like a per pupil allocation, but I'm not sure. I can go check and let you know.
I was just wondering because per pupil allocation is directly affected by the way you live. So in these areas like Aina Haina might receive more money than Waianae. And the reason why is the real estate around it. So I just was wondering if the impacts were affected through federal monies. But thank you. You answered a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay, Trustee Akina?
Thank you very much for the report. I'm glad you mentioned the OHA data book, because that can be an important player in helping people see what outcomes are. Can you give me just a quick timeline as to where we are in terms of the status of the latest version of the data book? In particular, when will we have data to support education outcome reporting?
I'm not sure about that. I think that is Kale Hannes. That's his kuleana. But I can ask him and get back to you.
Thank you.
Trustees, any other questions or discussion? about this? Mahalo nui loa. I have one question. I know that has happened over the past 2 weeks. Does any of this address in any way, or it can be modified to address the admissions policy of Kamehameha Schools, the challenge to that policy? Is there anything in here?
Not specifically,
Okay.
but I think one of the things that it addresses is the trust relationship that state and federal agencies have to Native Hawaiians, which I think is related to some of the issues that we're going to have to bring forward in the protection of Kamehameha Schools admissions policies. I think much of the context that the report talks about around the importance of Hawaiian education is equally as relevant to Kamehameha Schools. And I think the notion that there has been a lot of progress made from our people around bettering our education systems and making education more relevant and applicable to us as a people. All those things are in here, and there are the same strengths that would be applicable to any protection of Kamehameha Schools. So I
So-
think it's
Go ahead.
in alignment.
I see. So this could be viewed as a proponent of the admissions policy of Kamehameha
Yeah,
in the long run.
it's a justification and a reminder that of the importance of Native Hawaiian education.
Sure. Okay. Appreciate it. Kopohana?
Mahalo, Chair. So as Anu is participating in the task force, from a very subject matter expertise as an educator with education institutions, she's staying connected with Lena Ala as our chief advocate to make sure that as policy, as that is being discussed, that we are always staying in alignment with education and our policy.
Okay, very good. And just a quick follow-up to Trustee Akina's comments. Data is key, especially when it comes to policy making. So I'm glad we're in front of it. Thank you. Okay, mahalo. Okay, next item A2, direct legal services to beneficiaries implementation plan. Leanne, are there anyone who wants to speak publicly? Public testimony?
No public testimony at this time.
Okay. Kapuana?
Mahalo, Chair. Coming to the table to provide this update is our corporation counsel, Everett Ota.
Good morning, Chair Gualtieri and trustees. I'm here to provide an update on two high-profile items within the Corporate Counsel Office budget as approved by this board for the fiscal biennium 26-27. The first being direct legal services contract, and then the second being our ongoing work and contracts with the University of Hawaii through the Kahuliao Center for Excellence in Native Hawaiian Law. I would just like to preface this presentation in that it's more of a budget implementation presentation as opposed to an update, a detailed update on either program. As this board knows, both programs have been long-standing supports for the office, and they are continuing to do so through the next biennium. But this is just to show that we have been making progress in these two budget items, and I'll go over that in more detail. But it is not a more detailed presentation, particularly from the contractors for these programs. We had one from the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, who was our previous contractor for direct legal services. They gave a presentation in May of this year. And then Kahuliao is our contractor for the other community serving legal clinic and Native Hawaiian law trainings. They haven't given a presentation in a year or two, but they can be, just would need to be coordinated with the staff there. Yeah. Office. Okay. So just briefly, the first of the two updates is on the direct legal services contract. This provides funding for statewide legal representation for OHA beneficiaries in several areas, quiet title defense, ahupua'a, and kuleana tenant rights. That includes access to water and I'm sorry, access to these areas um, for beneficiaries with such tenant rights. Protections of Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices is direction of protections of wahikapu or sacred sites, including burial sites, preservation of Native Hawaiian land trust entitlements, primarily relating to Department of Hawaiian Homelands and protections of, again, uh, uh, land and homeownership retention strategies on state-owned lands, again, primarily related to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands lessees. The budget that was approved by this board provides for $3 million over the biennium or $1.5 million per fiscal year. This is an increase from prior fiscal years of about $200,000, I think, representing this board's commitment to funding this work and also recognition of the increased costs of providing such comprehensive services to our contractor. Next slide, please. For the last contract in the last fiscal year, reporting from our prior contractor, Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, there was continuing demand for such services, as noted in this slide. This is also information provided to this board via the contractor's quarterly reports that are provided for under contract and were sent to the board, I think, last month. These figures represent, again, an increase in services, but also represent the value provided through this contract. Again, through the board's support, we're continuing to look to support such direct legal services through a contract for the next biennium. And we're currently, next slide, in procurement for that. This contract is awarded under professional services procurement. We're currently finalizing our selection panel for approval by the Chief Procurement Officer, the board chair. From there, and once selection is made, we'll go, of course, through contract negotiation and contract execution with a proposed or target start date of October 1st. As provided for in prior contracts, the selected vendor will also be providing OHA with quarterly updates as to the services provided under the upcoming contract. Okay. If any questions before I move on to the next update topic?
Trustees? No, proceed, please.
Thank you. Okay, the next update is being provided for the University of Hawaii's Huli Center for Excellence in Native Hawaiian Law. This is actually contracted to the University of Hawaii Office of Research Services. So that's the contracting party, but effectively this is work done and coordinated through Kahuliao and the faculty and post JD fellows at that organization or that department. The funding provided by our biennium budget supports two legal programs at the school center, the A'oaku A'omai Native Hawaiian Law Clinics that are overseen by Professor Kapua Sproat at the director for Kahuliao, and the Native Hawaiian law trainings, which are currently being supported by Ui Tanikawa alum. The partnership has a history with OHA, as you know. We provide funding for the legal clinics to have students provide on-the-ground support to rural communities facing legal challenges under the direction and supervision of licensed Hawaii attorneys. These clinic students get invaluable training and education in actual direct work with community members, and I think provide that additional, well, support to community members, surely, but also that breadth of experience to young attorneys who are still kind of exploring their options, and including this type of work is, I think, invaluable as a way to connect that with actual benefits on the ground. In addition, the funding also goes towards Native Hawaiian law trainings, which are conducted twice a year in compliance with OHA's responsibilities under HRS sections 1041 and 1042, which requires OHA to provide Native trainings in Native Hawaiian law to boarding commission members that serve on boards and commissions, state boards and commissions, as well as county that have potential impacts on Native Hawaiian rights and having to understand their duties to the same. The funding provided is stated here at the bottom, about $235,000 per fiscal year, total of $470,000 under the biennium budget. Next slide, please. So just in terms of updates, last year in the spring of 2025, the A'oaku Maui Clinic continued to support the Maui Komohana community. The West Maui community is still continuing to navigate the impacts of the Maui wildfires, looking at water rights protections and is securing water use rights for beneficiaries, as the recovery efforts continue, as well as cultural site protections. A number of legal service hours have been provided to beneficiaries on the ground, including farmers, through the clinic's work, and again, supervised by Kahuliao staff and licensed attorneys. The Native Hawaiian law trainings, as you know, occur twice a year, including last week, with, I think, Chair Kahele participating in that presentation. They are conducted via Zoom to allow a wider audience reach. There's currently efforts underway to expand it to an on-demand training to, again, ensure that we are reaching as many boards and commission members as possible, including those that are required to take the same training by state law. So these are, again, efforts to try to expand that training, and also, I think, recognizing the tremendous demand for these trainings, both by decision makers as well as community members who are trying to also better understand their rights and things that are provided for under law and case precedent. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, I guess in terms of an update, both contract amendments have been executed for the fiscal biennium 2026-2027. So the funds have been put into these contract amendments to continue the work of Kahuliao. As I mentioned earlier, the training occurred last week for the fall of 2025, with an additional training projected for early next year. An on-demand training module is in progress for the Native Hawaiian law trainings, and for the Native Hawaiian Law Clinic, continued work with the Maui Komohana community is continuing per the Kahuliao staff. Yes, that does it for my
Trustees, any discussion? Trustee Lindsay.
I just want to say that I've been through the training 3 times, and each time I learned a little bit more and a little bit more. So I want to encourage my colleagues here, for those of you that have not attended that training. It's so educational, and I thought I knew everything, until I went to the training, and there were so many things that I learned there. So I just want to encourage you folks to attend that. It's really a great blessing to be able to enjoy that education.
Mahalo. Everett?
If I could maybe just maybe piggyback on what Trustee Lindsay had shared, I think that is great feedback, and it's also been shared by other participants in the trainings. I mean, they consistently get positive feedback in their surveys, post participation surveys for those trainings. Um, and I guess I will also point out that it is a lot of work to keep those trainings up to date, right, with changes in the laws, changes in case decisions that have come out. So it is not just a set in stone training, right? And that's also some of the challenges that occur with creating an on-demand training, just the need to continually refresh those materials to keep them, accurate and up to date. So that's part of the work of Kuhliao. They have a good team there, of course, and they have a number of professors that also support these trainings. So being able to utilize that expertise is something we certainly want to continue, and we will be doing so through this biennium.
Trustee Akaka?
Mahalo. Is it shared with OHA, or is it possible to ask to have the data on hand on participants, whether it be county, state, federal, or anyone in between, or somewhere, whether it's commission members and board members?
We do get reports back on the trainings. I don't recall them containing specific attendee lists. But I think maybe for the purposes of tracking, our compliance with the requirements for the board and commission members to participate, I think there has been an effort to try to stand up as many of these trainings consistently and as, again, widely available as possible, to try to, remove any excuse that such members have in not being able to participate. So I think once that is, we can definitely look more towards compliance, ensuring those responsibilities
Yeah,
or
and I
training
think-
responsibilities are met.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is looking at ways in which we can advocate and communicate to these different entities on why we would encourage for them to attend, as it would be helpful for them, for their kuleana as well as our kuleana, when it comes to our constitutionally mandated kuleana regarding our crown and government lands.
Maybe one thing, sorry, if I may, just to also maybe make a note of this, given the opportunity. We did receive feedback this year, which I think, which was a first, to say that there is such a high demand to attend these trainings that they've had to start turning away or waitlisting some people who had wanted to sign up. At some point, there's just, they do want to create an environment in these trainings that is open and facilitates discussions and real thoughtful questions, particularly by the board members who are trying to navigate, right, the responsibilities under the law, but doing so in a space that's not going to just open them up for criticism or, some type of, reflection back on a comment that might have been made just to learn, but, they're concerned about it being used against them in a future setting. So with that, they're trying to look at what is the right amount of people to invite and have participate in these trainings, attend these trainings. And they're kind of they are starting to exceed that number. So, we're going to be working with them on ways to ensure, the purpose of the trainings continues to be met, while still trying to, be responsive to the demand for these trainings, again, by community members as well as board members.
Trustees, any more questions or discussion? Okay, Trustee Lindsay.
I just want to say that our staff can also go to this training, and it's really, really educational for them. My staff has attended, and they came back saying it was really, really educational. So,
Mahalo. Just for the record, since we had Everett up here, we moved, and there was no public testimony. We moved seamlessly from A2 to A3, just for the record. Okay? Mahalo. Oh, mahalo to administration too. Oh, Everett?
Sorry, one final thing.
Sure.
The Kahuliao programs have not had an update to this board in, again, a year or two. This wasn't intended to be that update, and certainly, the Kahuliao faculty and staff are open to a presentation to this board to provide a more detailed sharing of the work that they've been doing under both of these programs. So the offer, has been extended by them. It just need to be coordinated, of course, with this committee schedule as well as theirs. But we can look to maybe schedule something in the next, few months or so.
Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo, Everett, for sharing that. It makes me think that maybe that's a workshop that can be provided OHA wide, where they're able to provide that training in-house.
Sorry, I think the offer is more of just an update on their work as opposed to a training per se. But I can see what maybe could be also available if there's an interest as well.
Oh, Trustee Ahuna.
Do they still give their presentations to like the county councils and stuff like that?
Those invitations are extended.
Oh.
I think it's,
And then-
who signs up.
And then they have primers too that go along with all the things they talk about too, right? Books.
I don't, maybe if somebody who's participated in the training more
Primers,
recently.
they talk about each of the laws.
Oh, primers,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah, the primer.
There are primers that are around, that were also developed with actually earlier iterations of the clinics. So those relate to traditional customary rights, VI, EV kupuna protections, and I think it's quiet title and partition actions. So those continue to be available through Kahuliao, and I think we have a few primers, hard copy primers, lying around if there's trustees who haven't received those. But those are also, try to be made available online. So again, community can access those and learn more about their rights under the law.
Okay, trustees, any more questions, discussion? Okay, mahalo to the administration for the presentations. Let's continue with new business item B, workshop, discussion on the preliminary OHA legislative bill package topics and the 2026 state legislative session. Kapohana.
Mahalo, Chair. If I may, Lena Ala would like to introduce two staff members who are in the room prior to her starting her agenda item. Would that be
Certainly.
okay? Mahalo. Go ahead, Le.
Mahalo, Stacey. I'll just ask Andrea and Emilo, I think, are in the room and can go to the board table. I'm remote today because I'm still sick.
Welcome to OHA. Nice to have you. Please proceed.
Oh, yeah, I'll go first. Okay. Aloha kako. My name is Andrea Makuanani, and I'm the new Kauai compliance advocate, and working on policy as well, EV issues. So yeah, I just graduated from Richardson's law school. So the Kahuliao folks taught me everything I know. With a certificate in Native Hawaiian law. I'm really excited to be here and advocate on behalf of Native Hawaiians.
Aloha kakahiaka kako.
Aloha.
Olo imiloa Borland no makalapa eva a me Washington DC mayau no hoao I kakako. My name is Emiloa Borland. My family is from Makalapa area. I was born in Washington DC and lived there until I was 12 and moved back home. And I live right now in Kakako. I just finished working in the legislature this past session. I was the committee clerk for Senator Carl Rhodes for Judiciary, and I also was an office manager in the House over the summer before starting here at OHA. And I'm really excited to do policy work as a public policy advocate to help advocate for our hui here in the state capitol, in DC, wherever else our hui needs to be heard. So mahalo nui for the opportunity.
Mahalo. Thank you.
Mahalo. And then Kyla, is Sade Freitas in the waiting room? Can she be admitted? She's remote from the Hilo office.
Okay, we'll be there in a second. Hold on, please.
We letting her in? Okay. You want to join us? Can you hear us?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha e nā kahuwaiwai o wau Sharday Mercersburg Freitas. He aho pueo kulekele au puni wau. It's good to be back. Mahalo.
Well, that was short and sweet. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Sharday. Welcome. Please proceed, Lei.
Okay, thank you. And then just in case it wasn't clear, Sade is also a public policy advocate out of the Hilo office. And then I think Andrea stated she's the new compliance advocate for the island of Kauai, but is currently working out of the Oahu office for another month. So today is just a brief high-level overview of where we are in the development of our legislative package. And as a reminder, the actual action item and presentation of bills for the board's vote and consideration will not be until October 15th, I think is the Bay date, mid-October. But we wanted to provide an update of where we are in the information gathering stage and outreach to our allies and beneficiaries. So starting with our beneficiaries, we have our legislative priorities community survey that went out about a month and a half ago and was originally set to close on Monday, but given the CNHA conference and other opportunities to use this as a tool to gather information, we left it open until October 15th. But I can provide the initial overview of responses we've received to date, which total 302 responses so far. So if you could go to the next slide, Kyla. So as you can see, and as the rest of these slides will show, the survey respondents are very engaged overall, starting with their registration with OHA's Native Hawaiian Registry. Half of them are registered. And another, 23% aren't sure, but 50% are registered. Next slide, please. 60% who responded are in fact Native Hawaiian beneficiary. Next slide, please. The age group was, as usual with, I think, engagement, skewed a little bit older, but I think it was, a good number of people in the young adult, middle age range, which is positive given it's traditionally harder to reach, younger people on voting and different kind of civic engagement. Next slide, please. This is a very engaged group, though. I thought this was the most telling slide. 96% are registered to vote, so this is a very engaged group. Next slide. This is just setting the stage since most of the questions are based on Mana'i Mauli'ola, and a smaller subset were familiar with our strategic plan. Next slide, please. So, I'll be honest, the way we structured the survey, most of the issues we raise, people care about. That's the main takeaway. But if you go to the next slide, I will highlight of all the issues that were raised, which are the last slide and this slide, the ones that rose to the top is extremely important. 73% of participants identified land, water, and cultural resource protection as being extremely important. 71% identified housing as being extremely important. and 70% of participants identified preserving agricultural land and improving food sovereignty is extremely important. So those were the top three: cultural resource protection, housing, and preserving ag land. So that was, new information for us as the advocacy team. Next slide, please. So again, this is a pretty engaged group. More than half of them have previously testified or contacted their representative. Next slide. Most of them are 60%, it could have been higher, but 60% want to be kept in the loop about OHA's legislative agenda and package. Next slide. This was kind of all over the place. Everyone has different opinions, it seems, about how they prefer to engage in advocacy. Although this in the next slide suggests that online advocacy is more accessible and the preferred form of engagement as opposed to in person. Next slide, please. And this kind of goes to that point again, that a lot of people want to get updates via email. Less people are interested in doing in-person workshops and trainings. Most people want to learn and participate through online engagement opportunities. Next slide, please. So moving on to, again, this is just a high-level overview of some of the bills that the Advocacy Department is exploring in collaboration with our S&I team, our community partners, and beneficiaries. When we come back to the board next month, of course, we'll revisit our package bills from last year. Those are listed at the top. The only bill, and we already provided an update to trustees via email, that we've really identified as a priority that the community is asking OHA to champion, is a bill to roll back an amendment that snuck through at the end of last session that has been read to exempt all single family residential properties from the HRS Chapter 6E review, which would have a devastating effect on EV, many of the most prominent EV issues we've been involved with in the past year, including North Shore Kauai, were discoveries that arose on single family residential properties. And again, we circulated the brief related to this issue. Other issues that we are exploring in the BOT Series 2100, which is EV viticulture and ceded lands, is a bill looking to ban use of freshwater for golf courses. And this is in direct response to rebuilding efforts on Maui and the water challenges that are arising there. And also potentially a bill to strengthen how water use planning and budgeting is incorporated for new development. So when there are entitlements and land use entitlements being granted, there's also an understanding of what is the water that's going to be required to support those uses. Next slide, please. Moving on to the MEMA directions on education, we're working closely with ANU on addressing looking at the pathways to address potentially inequities in the Hawaiian language charter school funding and also Kaiapuni classroom access. This is something we're exploring with quite a large group of partners, and it could be that the better avenue to address these issues or potentially through the BOE or really at the school level. So this is just, again, under exploration. It's not clear that legislation is the best way to tackle this problem. Other economic development ideas that are being explored is a bill to limit non-agricultural uses of agricultural land. And this is a discussion that arose from the community as well, primarily in response to the gondola that has been proposed to go up to halfway up the mountain to Mount Ka'ala, starting on the Wailua side on what is, zoned as agricultural land, but would essentially convert the use of that land to primarily commercial, because the attraction of the gondola, which is, you know, you go up the mountain, you can see the whole view, and then you can zip line down, would clearly be the primary use of the land, not agriculture. And that's raised a lot of concerns among the community and discussion among legislators as well about how to rein in the proliferation of non-ag uses on ag lands. So that's something we're looking into. Also a bill to prioritize indigenous food production systems and make sure that there's equitable access to competing for different programs that might already exist in the Department of Ag. Next slide, please. Housing, there were a lot of ideas, and again, this was one of the priority issues along with the ag issue that we just discussed that was identified in our legislative survey. And some of the ideas, again, all under discussion. There was a California bill passed, I think, in 2019 to establish a rent cap and eviction protections. It exempts single family, or it exempts properties owned by individuals. So really the target is, again, corporate investment properties. A bill to limit construction of hotel or transient vacation rentals along the TOD rail corridor to prioritize access to that, to the original purpose of transit-oriented development, which is to allow residents easier access between home, school, work. Bills to require basically disclosure of information, which has been passed in a lot of other states to ensure that short-term vacation rentals are being properly taxed and are only being used in the proper areas that they've been zoned or permitted in. So to allow enforcement of zoning and tax collection. And then this has come up in a number of different settings, but data disaggregation and how we can be capturing better data that can help inform policy. Next slide, please. And then this is a final memo direction. The first one, I think someone else is actually championing, so I won't talk to that. There were some bills floated last session about how any lands returned by the military would be managed by the community, and we're trying to reach out and discuss with the community their ideas on that point. And then the last one would be to look, basically the disclosure requirement would be an educational measure so that new property owners, especially beachfront property owners, understand public access across the front of their property and where the shoreline is. So there's not that continued push by people to extend their property down the shore by planting out vegetation and whatnot, which is actually against existing law. But a lot of people don't know or understand where the shoreline is under the law and where the end of their property ends and the public beach begins. So those are the high level kind of overview of some of the ideas that we are exploring. Again, we're in the information gathering stage, and we'll be back to the board in about a month with the bills that filter up through both our, internal evaluation process that looks at the whether legislation is really the best avenue to tackle this problem as opposed to agency action or some other type of, public-private collaboration. Working with our partners to make sure that OHA is the best champion for any of these bills, to assess, if some of these are more politically costly than others and whether we want to, expend political capital on an idea that might not move forward. Those are some of the primary considerations that we'll be filtering these ideas through over the next month. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Any discussion or questions for Lenaola? Okay, thank you, Le. Oh, Trustee Bailey.
Yeah, Chair, just for Lenaola and for the rest of our trustees, I mean, we're gonna have a pretty active presence at the Civic Club convention, and there'll be a number of bills and resolutions that'll be discussed there. So looking hopefully to include some of those civic club adopted resolutions that come out of convention into maybe our OHA bill package, since they will be carrying the weight of the civic clubs. Be very helpful for us, not just for bill introduction, but also when it's time to put out the kahea to get testimony. If civic club members are engaged, they've deliberated on these issues, they voted for them, they backed them. When it's time for us to get testimony from them, they're more likely to be there. So, yeah, mahalo.
Yes, and if I could I just clarify too in our more complete timeline that we shared previously, but the mid-October deadline is our initial package proposal for the board to vote on, and then we had our final bill package proposal scheduled for November after the Civic Club meeting. So it could be responsive to exactly what Chair Kahele was talking about, is, you know, what further information and policy ideas come out of the Civic Club. And then one other thing on timeline, I just wanted to remind all the trustees that we have our open house with legislators that is scheduled for Monday, the 29th. And as of right now, we have about a little more than 30 legislators confirmed to attend. I can send out the exact list, but it does include, I mean, it's a good list. It's 30 people. So we will be following up with your aides to confirm which trustees will be there on the 29th, and we will be sharing out the draft agenda that includes a short presentation by Stacy on our constitutional and statutory mandates, as well as a potential open house at Haleinoa to kind of share with the legislators in the space where it occurs some of the direct services that we provide to our beneficiaries. So I just wanted to flag that we'll be following up with your aides to collect RSVPs for that this week. Thank you.
Okay, mahalo. Now, trustees, if in the event that they haven't approached you yet, advocacy, they're going to come to each one of us and learn our individual legislative priorities. And we're going to try and weave it into the packages as well. Okay, so just bear that in mind if they haven't yet. Okay, Leigh, are you done? Pao? Okay.
Yes, mahalo, trustee.
Okay, mahalo. Okay, we'll now be moving into executive session. But before we do that, I'd like to take item 5, community concerns and celebrations, out of order, so our guests will not need to wait for us to come out of executive session. Do we have any public testimony online or in person?
No public testimony.
Okay, that's the right answer. Mahalo. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 6, executive session for.
So move.
Okay, thank you for the motion to move into executive session. By the way, we're going to have an update on